Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by Capsule to Cone. I'm Matt McQueen, and today we're going to look at recording some 60s sounding drums. This is for a project that Matt Goldman is recording and producing, and these drums were recorded here at Gem City Studios, and it's for the Explorers Club's new project that is a collection of covers from the 60s. And so in order for this to sound period accurate on these covers, we tried to record these drums in as isolated a way as possible, and also with techniques that would resemble recording drums in the 60s. And since there's not a lot of content on YouTube about recording these type of drums, I thought that it would make for a really good video. And so what we're going to do is we're going to listen to Matt talk about how he set the microphones up for the drum kit and how he tuned the drums. And he actually also played these drums, and so that'll be really cool to just see how he set them up, how he tuned them, and then we're going to compare that to the original recording on this cover of She'd Rather Be With Me. So let's check it out, let's listen to Matt and see what he's got to say.
We're here doing the drums for the new Explorers Club record. We're doing two records, doing a covers record and an originals record. The originals we did mostly in Nashville, and we did the covers here in Gem City, and redid a couple of the originals here at Gem City, because when I did it in Nashville, I didn't have the drums tuned right. We were going for as authentic a 60s thing as we can, minus actually recording on really ancient consoles onto old tape machines and that sort of thing. It's something we don't have the option for. But we're trying to make these drums sound like the drums they recorded on 60s records. We're using a single mono overhead. So we use this in a cardioid pattern. And we have all the gobos around here with the dead side facing the drums, trying to dry this up as much as possible. But you can probably hear me talking right now and hear the room reverberating, which is awesome for so many things. But for this, we were actually fighting against the room a little bit. So, for example, I don't know how loud this will be on that camera. We have the snare cranked up kind of high, and the toms also really high, far higher than you'd normally do on a rock record. The kick drum's also a little bit high and mostly kind of open. We have just a tiny bit of dampening. Cymbals are all old cymbals from like the 50s, and it's doing our best. Of course, these are obviously new mics. In the mix, though, I found if you tune the toms up real high, you can lean more on the overhead. Like in the final mix, this is going to be a drum sound, and I'm going to bring the close mics in just enough, maybe not at all. We'll see. And on the front of the kick, we have a couple mics. We've got a D12, which is an older kick mic, and a Lawson FET 47, which is a copy of the Neumann FET 47, and a pretty darn good copy. I had a FET 47. We compared the two, and they were really, really close. We have a poofy beater to try to get the kick. We don't want a lot of attack out of our kick. We just want a nice little bloom. The biggest thing, like I said, was trying to get the drums in the overhead to sound right. And these, all the mics here are just because I don't have enough confidence and I want to have those as a safety. But this is our drum sound, because that's what you hear on a lot of those records. Particularly like on the jazz records, you don't hear any close mics. You just hear the drum set. And that's another thing we were going for. We wanted to make sure, unlike modern records, when you hear the drums, you feel like you're hearing a drum set. And you're not hearing just individual drums, which is what on a lot of records I love. Is how the drum sound is, where you hear a snare drum, you hear a rack tom, you hear a floor tom, and you don't hear a drum set. So we're trying to really capture this set.
All right, so let's jump into Pro Tools. Let's look at these drums. Let's listen to some sounds. It's worth noting that in the video, we showed you that we had set up an AKG 414, and we ended up backing up from that and putting a ribbon microphone in. We used the SC Electronics VR1 ribbon mic in the same position right over top of the drums. We ended up thinking that that sounded a little bit better, and so we ended up tracking the drums with that. In addition to that, and I'll also let you listen to this, we put an RCA 44 over top of the drums, and in the final mix, Matt has already told me that he's going to end up going with the VR. He likes the way that that sounds the best, and surprisingly enough, it doesn't sound that much different from the 414. It's a little bit better sounding, but it's not too different. You would think that a ribbon mic would be much darker, but the SE Voodoos are actually pretty bright. So you probably get a little bit slower transient from the SE just because it is a ribbon microphone, so it's not going to be as fast and snappy as a condenser microphone would probably be. But we'll go ahead and listen to these drums. I'll just play it from the top, and then I'll also just kind of fade back and forth between the original recording, and then I'll pull our drums back in. Some girls love to run around, love to handle everything they see. Now these drums are mono. The overhead is right over the center of the kit, and then let's also listen to this tom section, because that's really important. Just since the toms are actually turned down, we did record toms, but fairly certain that Matt's not going to actually use the tom microphones in his mix, because the overhead just does a really good job with those toms tuned really high of picking up the toms the way that you want to hear them. So let's listen to this little tom section on the rack tom, and then it also goes to there's a little roll here at the end. I'll just listen through that whole section. And you can see that there's not really, if I solo the snare mic up, there's not really any bleed from that rack tom in the snare mic. It's very, very, very minimal. I mean, all of that is really coming from the overhead. So let's listen to that snare and tom roll on just the overhead. Solo it up. Okay, that's pretty, sounds pretty awesome. They sound great. Those toms are tuned nearly perfectly. Kind of, not gonna lie, I'm kind of jealous of Matt's drum tuning. All right, so let's listen to compare. Let's just listen to the 44. Now, the one thing is the 44 is way darker, but when we were tracking this, I just wanted to experiment, so I set it up, and I ended up on the console. I ended up using quite a bit of high shelf. Ribbon mics can take a ton of, you can crank a ton of high end into a ribbon mic and it doesn't sound like blown out or super weird. And so I remember putting some high end in this ribbon mic. Let's go ahead and listen to the RCA 44. It seems to me like the 44 is a little bit roomier. It's also got, there is a little bit of a boom in the mid-range somewhere, and the VR1 just sounds nicer. So to me anyways, I think that certainly if you wanted something that was darker sounding, the 44 would be the place to go, and maybe not boost as much high end into it. Let's just listen to that tom roll one more time on both microphones. I think the toms sound a little bit fatter, but I don't really, when the whole mix is going on, I don't really miss whatever the 44 is adding to the toms. I think with all the microphones in, and if you even put a little bit of the tom microphones in, let's just put those in. Maybe we'll start with about -6 on both of them. Probably more than we ever need. This is supposed to sound like a 60s recording. Don't need these close mics on the toms, and they didn't have enough tracks when they were tracking it to put tom microphones and, you know, tons of room microphones up. That's the reason that the drums sounded the way that they did, and why they're mostly in mono. And I believe in this song they're actually even panned mostly to the left side in the original recording. So let's just check this out with some tom mics in. Yeah, so if you really missed that bottom and you wanted it to sound maybe just a smidge more modern and not 60s, you could probably put the tom microphones back in. Of course, that's not going to happen, I don't think, in the final mix. I think Matt's real happy with what he got with the Voodoo and the snare mic and the 2 kick microphones. Let's just go ahead and listen to those kick microphones too before we close up shop for the day. Listen to those in isolation. So this is the D12, the AKG, and it's there adding some punch. And I've got it kind of low in the mix because, again, I'm trying to, you know, just pull up what Matt had and then also go by kind of how the recording sort of sounds, and not get a super, you know, beefy, meaty kick drum, because that's not the style. That's not what this song's about. So, but so you can hear it, I'll turn it up. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to need a ton of that. If you want just a little bit of beater, you could put that in the mix, but I'll pull it down kind of low, back to where, close to where Matt had them. Let you hear the drums again. You can hear that the snare and the kick, they're not really doing a whole lot. Most of your sound is coming from the overhead, and then we're just putting these spot mics in there to just get just a little bit more out of it. So I think that it's really cool. I think this is going to be a really cool project. I want to say thanks to Matt for letting us use these tracks to kind of investigate what's going on with these different microphones and be able to hear them. Thanks for watching Capsule to Cone. Guys, hit that subscribe button if this is content that you like seeing. Leave us a comment below. Tell us what you thought of these 60s sounding drums, and if there's anything that you've done that sort of resembles this project, I'd love to hear about it. Hit that bell icon to get notifications when we post another video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.